lasers, forward and time-reversed light waves, set up a scalar wave which we call a laser beam. This picture shows that when we inject several atoms into a laser beam, the individual atoms will phase lock into the stationary scalar wave of the laser beam and will settle into the lowest energy pockets within the beam, where they are trapped. It may be difficult to imagine the reality that light creates variations in its local gravitational field. But just as we saw with sand ripples and wave clouds and shape-throwing flocks of starlings and atoms locking into crystal formations, all particles migrate to the lowest energy points in the local space. This is the nature of gravity. Here we see a device that traps droplets of water within a steerable laser beam. The droplets can then be transported as desired by redirecting the laser beam. Through what we have discussed up to this point, we must agree that everything is not as we have believed it to be. In fact, I think you will be amazed at how little actually appears to be left standing of what you were taught at school or in college. I have discovered in my own journey of re-education that I now understand why I found it so difficult to fully grasp much of the material I was taught during my years of study at physics and engineering college. The reason is simply that the concepts were too complicated to be true. I find there is great wisdom in these words of Confucius. Life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. Confucius was born around 500 BC. Isn't it amazing how little has changed in the 2,500 years since then? Let's take a journey back in human time. We are aware of many great projects from the distant past. Ancient standing stone circles dot the landscape of the British Isles, like this little stone circle at Drombeg in Ireland, or the famous Stonehenge in England. Then there are the truly massive pyramids in many countries around the world, with massive stones that are perfectly fitted. Consider the enormous sizes of some of the stones that were transported long distances to the sites of construction. This stone at a quarry in Lebanon weighs over 1,000 tons. The Great Pyramid at Giza had been clad with massive slabs of polished limestone. All that remains intact are these that we can see around its base. Can you imagine these slabs weighing 10 to 20 tons being placed with a surrounding gap of only 1/50th of an inch, a half millimeter, the thickness of a razor blade? Satellite mapping shows that the Great Pyramid at Giza is constructed within an accuracy of 6 millimeters or a quarter of an inch, on a base area of 13 acres. Also, satellite mapping shows that the sides of the Great Pyramid are concave to the same curvature as the Earth. Isn't it time that we stopped denying the knowledge that our ancients possessed. I do not propose to have a theory as to how these massive stones were quarried, transported and raised in construction, or indeed what their uses were, but I will make some scalar energy inspired observations. Pyramids are not only a phenomenon on planet Earth. Here is a pyramidal structure from planet Mars that is of similar size to the Great Pyramid at Giza. Pyramids were built in a time when love and respect was present in humanity. This is the only period which produced stone art that shows someone giving a flower to another. These are the daughters of Nefertiti. I draw your attention to the shapes of their heads. Here is a skull from Peru in South America. And here is another one. We mentioned earlier the beautiful lenticular clouds that routinely form over particular mountains because of the effects the scalar energy of these mountains cause within the surrounding scalar energy field. Like this formation over Mount Rainier in Washington State, and this one over St. Helens volcano, and this one over Mauna Loa volcano in Hawaii, and this absolutely magnificent one over the volcanic mountain Kaituna in New Zealand. Three things I want to point out. One is that these lenticular clouds only occur over volcanoes, active or extinct. So we see that energy gateways exist through volcanoes, stargates if you wish to call them by another name. The second is that the word pyramid is composed of the Greek words para, meaning fire, and medos, meaning measures. The third is that pyramids are extremely similar in shape to volcanic cones. Now here is an interesting picture. It is a Kirlian photograph that was taken of a scale model of the Great Pyramid at Giza, with a Tesla coil placed at its center. The double helix that can be seen emanating from the top of the pyramid has laser-like coherence. Could it be that our ancient ancestors were masters of scalar energy? Humanity is obviously no stranger to transition. Some great transition brought a disconnect between the harmonious and loving pyramid building era and our present era that is based on fear. We are currently facing into another era change, and it probably will be as dramatic as the era change previous. Mathematicians refer to the trip point when exponential growth